I Thunderbolt Ross, I'll be honest, you could have told this story in Thunderbolts, which I already said. I believe that's what the asterisk on that title is for. I believe, and by the end of this film, he is still Red Hulk. After I saw the end of this, I definitely believe he's gonna come and fight the Void. I feel like that's how the Thunderbolts survived fighting Sentry / Void. That's where I'm at with it. You could have, and this would have probably lended itself very well to a Thunderbolt movie. Him going through that process of trying to fight something that he's not even aware of, the leader that's been giving him these pills to maintain to maintain a heart condition that he has. And he's been sliding gamma radiation in it. And that's why he turns into Red Hulk. Also, I'm not sure why they didn't even go in depth about Red Hulk's powers. They did show you that he's intensely hot, like with the smolders coming off his body and stuff. Whereas Hulk, the longer he fights, the stronger he gets. The longer Red Hulk fights, the hotter he gets. And like his temperatures get ridiculous at some point or whatever, to the point where Hulk can't even really touch him when they're fighting. Which could have lended itself very well to like damaging Sam's wings and things like that. I don't think they really took proper advantage of having Red Hulk in this film, especially in that final conflict. I don't know where they were going with that, or why they decided not to go where they should have gone with it. But whatever. The action is okay. They do a pretty good job compensating for him not having a super soldier serum, and the super soldier serum comes up in a very surprising cameo and conversation with one Bucky, aka the Winter Soldier. And Bucky basically said, "No, he reminds Sam of why Captain America gave him the shield. It wasn't about being a super soldier; it's about being, a good man, essentially, and somebody that Captain America, that Steve Rogers could trust with that shield, and to kind of maintain his values and his thoughts on it, but also do his own thing. And to that point, the action wasn't as exciting in terms of the fighting as it was, when you had Steven Rogers running around being a super soldier.
Facts.
But that action scene with Tywin in the background, where they're flying around and they're battling against the jet fighters for Japan. Yeah, it was Japan.
Yeah.
While also trying to maintain what the leader has done in terms of taking over like American heroes and having them to do things. That was a really cool scene to me.
Facts.
It was. Yeah, that scene was dope. The new Falcon and Captain America, you working side by side. They were inventive with how they were going to solve the problem. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with being able to skate on top of I'm not a torpedo, on top of a missile and get it to go underwater. I'm not sure of the anatomy of how that works, but it worked for a movie or whatever. But when I saw the stage that was set, like that's a hell of a set piece, having that celestial in the background. And I'm like, whenever they do another Marvel vs. Capcom, there has to be a stage, right? There got to be a stage. That'd be dope as hell, having the celestial frozen in the background as your characters are fighting or whatever. But yeah, I think the main thing that I want to kind of discuss, we do agree that this is a reskin of Civil War, the Winter Soldier, and it was those two. It's a reskin of that. Like, they essentially take on the same mission. Isaiah is being controlled by the leader using a song, which Pierce was controlling Bucky using a series of words, right?
Right.
And then on the Civil War side of things, the leader is essentially a stand-in for Baron Zemo. he's doing the same thing. He's on the same mission, and instead of exposing the Avengers and by proxy exposing Steven Rogers, his darkest secret to his best friend, he's exposing the dark secret of Thunderbolt Ross to Sam Wilson. And it's just one of those things like, look, man, we don't have to give him a rehash of Captain America's greatest hits. Like,
Right.
Sam is his own man, but that's just where I wanted to start, man. What did you think about the plot they decided to place around Sam Wilson and how it relates to Isaiah, who also that was another great performance in this film as well. But go ahead.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. Like, you know, when you kind of approach a situation and like a like-minded kind of stance on things, that's kind of all I kept thinking. And I'm like, at a certain point, I kind of felt like they kind of did that on purpose. Not necessarily to let him compete with Steve Rogers, but just to see if he can hold a candle to him almost. It kind of felt like they were
That's an
trying to
interesting way of
see.
looking at it.
Yeah. It's kind of like it's kind of like a play, right? You know, a play is gonna get told time and time again. You just got to find different actors to stand in those same scenes to see if they can hold their weight. I kind of feel like that's what it was, man. And you know, at the same time, like you mentioned, it kind of gave us the perspective of what Steve possibly would have done if he wasn't a super soldier, almost.
Right.
So I guess it kind of they kind of spun the block to be like, okay, like you said, Steve chose you for a reason. So let's coincidentally put you in one of the same similar situations that Steve was in, and let's see what you'll do with it. And you know, kind of along the same lines, which I mean, he was on Steve's side during Civil War, so it kind of was
But
already
he has his own Falcon on his side here.
exactly.
That's just funny, yeah.
The story kind of read itself, man.
And then when I saw Bucky, the only thing I could think of is the congressional campaign that Bucky's on really that much more important? Because this could have been a sequel to the TV show Falcon and Winter Soldier, and you could have had them both come together. And I guess the danger that you run into is how does Bucky look next to somebody who doesn't have the super soldier serum?
Facts.
And Bucky will have a better understanding of what Isaiah is going through than Sam in that case, to be honest. So I understand not having him around, like you don't want to take away from Sam Wilson, but it was just an interesting thing that still have him show up in the movie, like he had something else better to do.
Right.
But yeah, and some of the beats, like the Causeway theme between where we get that excellent fight in the Winter Soldier between Bucky and Cap, and it's revealed that that's who's under the mask. They kind of played it out again, but this time it's Giancarlo Esposito fighting against Sam in a one-on-one fight, which again, I don't believe he would have rolled up on Sam without any backup or whatever. But again, he doesn't have the super soldier serum. So the interesting thing about that is he took a knife to the chest and he took a spike to the stomach. And I was like, wait a minute, man. Like, is this man juiced up for real? You know, like Sam was doing some super soldier shit for somebody who didn't have the super soldier serum in him. He really was. And then, like that first dive out of the air, I was like, he should have shattered his legs when he landed, but I guess we chalked that up to vibranium. I don't know. Another thing, I still don't understand the relationship between Sam and Wakandans. There was nothing in Falcon and Winter Soldier that dictated they would have given him anything. Anything. And it's like, did T'Challa sign off on this before he died? Like, what are we talking about here? But whatever. Again, these are things that I'm letting go.
Right.
The whole conflict. I don't understand why he didn't just say to Thunderbolt Ross, "Hey, Bucky went through something just like this. Don't get ready to just execute Isaiah. I'm pretty sure there's something going on. Like everything in the film, they wanted to do their own version of Civil War, mixed in with the Winter Soldier, and we had to kind of damn the logic in order to get there in a lot of ways. It is what it is, and it wouldn't be a problem, at least to me, if those other two movies didn't exist. I suppose so. That's why I didn't take off a whole lot for it. But moving on, uh, those speeches that he was giving, he gave a great speech to Isaiah early on in the film, who is still struggling with everything that when he went through as his time as Captain America,
Right.
and not necessarily being thrust into the limelight like he was doing more covert missions. And they have a great discussion. There's a scene that's heartbreaking after Isaiah snaps out of the trance and he was in the park and he wore to this presidential dinner or presentation. He wore the same suit that he got married in, and when he was on the ground, he starts to complain about them having this suit on the ground. That was a heartbreaking moment. That was very well played up, and that's honestly where Sam Wilson shines. Is when he's having that camaraderie with the new Falcon with Isaiah. Even at one point with Thunderbolt Ross, like he has a charisma and he has that look of just being a regular guy in an extraordinary circumstance, which is what you really look for in Steve Rogers, right? Um, but I'll say this: I feel like if Falcon and the Winter Soldier was released as Brave New World, it would have been better received. I believe that's a superior Falcon story here because they show you in that show why Steve gave him the shield. And then at the end, he makes a whole big speech, which you can take from there what you want.
Right.
But yeah, there was a safe Negro speech in there or whatever. But yeah, it's kind of whatever. It's kind of whatever. Um, and I'm trying to just determine what we need to talk about in the MCU side, but we can keep in this movie. I guess we can go to the Thunderbolt Ross side of things.
Cool.
Boy, it would have been great if he had another Hulk, right? There is a whole movie that you could put Bruce Banner in here and it works.
Thanks.
You could still have Sam in it, but Bruce Banner would work in basically saying, Sam, do not trust that man. He's up to something. He has an angle. And you get the storyline of where Thunderbolt Ross saw Hulk just as this monster, and how does it play out once he becomes that monster? To me, they didn't play up. And I guess you didn't have enough time. How Ross felt after being the Hulk, and what he put through Bruce through. I would have loved for them to unpack that, man, and really get into it, man. What do you think about the Thunderbolt Ross side of this?
Well, it's just like that old saying, man. Like, I don't really know exactly how the saying go. I know the premise of it, right? You pretty much become the monster that you fear, type shit. Shit like that. Yeah, I think that was very interesting what they did at the end. Like you said, I would have loved to see how he felt about it, but I think that's honestly 100% that reason is why Betty came back to actually visit him when he was locked up. Yeah, because she knows how Bruce felt after that. And knowing that her dad just went through what he just went through, because he was the one who put Bruce through that, she kind of, I felt like she kind of felt, like you said, a level of sympathy to where it was like, okay, like if he was trying to apologize earlier, he really needs me now because he's probably lost and or broken because he didn't empathize with Bruce going through what he was going through, right? He essentially sicked the dogs on him. And knowing that he just went through that, it was kind of like, okay, maybe Bruce wasn't a monster that I picked him out to be.
Right. I would have liked to have seen him say that. Also,
Right.
you have to consider at this point, Bruce is the reason for the blip. He's the reason everybody came back. He did the snap.
Right.
Bruce has been like a full-on Avenger at this point, and you really don't even hear him bring that up. Even with the Sokovia Accord situation, Bruce was in space when all of that happened. So we don't have a bookend of that. But he goes through essentially what Bruce goes through every day as the Hulk. And one of the most tense moments is when he almost turns into Red Hulk on that ship. And I thought that was well done. And I was like, wait a minute. Are you, I was anticipating, is he about to cut loose on this ship? And the previews and stuff had just been bullshit. Like, that would have been dope or whatever. But no, they don't even get into that. But moving on. Another thing, I wanted to talk about the fight. The big fight between Captain America and Red Hulk. And vibranium is a very important piece of this fight because it allows I'm not Falcon. See, I'm trying to show the man some respect. It allows Captain America to take those hits, and they keep going back and forth. And of course, his fighting style is so different. Honestly, I'm not sure how Steven Rogers would have been able to take on Red Hulk without, the aid of wings, which is what Sam had. So that's another thing that made it interesting and a fight that was unique to Sam. And I appreciated that. But boy, Red Hulk was whooping some ass.
Was he?
He was beating some ass. He was tearing Washington the fuck up out there. I looked at my wife. I said, man, how embarrassing is it to be the president that tore up the damn White House? Ain't that some shit? But yeah, then they get to the Blossom Gardens, and it's a pretty good fight. And again, what's interesting is they didn't explicitly tell you what his powers were, but it was the fact that the wings were absorbing the energy. Right. That tells you now this motherfucker. This is actual heat. This is kinetic energy that he's feeding off, of gamma energy that he's feeding off. So I thought that was pretty cool. And the way Sam created separation between them, I thought was cool. Stabbing him in the stomach and then releasing the energy blast from the vibranium. I thought that was dope too. And it was a pretty solid fight. It's nowhere near the fight between Abomination and Hulk and the Incredible Hulk, which is oh my god, that is a top tier conflict between those two. But I have loved Green Savage Hulk versus Red Savage Hulk in here. Absolutely would have loved that. But for the fight that we got, and which is something that I was concerned about, like how do they play this up, is in a situation where it's like Kang losing to a D-list character like Ant-Man, like that was, and I had a friend who actually raised that concern and was like, doesn't Red Hulk lose? And I told him, I can't spoil it for you, but Red Hulk definitely doesn't lose this fight.
Thanks.
And they brought back a version of the sun getting low, and the sun actually was getting low as he was talking to him, which was interesting as well. To me, honestly, it makes sense for Thunderbolt Ross to have the discipline to calm himself down in that moment. As a soldier, it actually, well, that's one detail that I think is going to go unnoticed. He was actually able to sit down or to calm himself, listen to what Sam was saying, and he had the presence of mind, which honestly is why I believe in the comics Red Hulk is essentially, he still preserves his personality as Red Hulk. It's because he's mentally fortified enough to be able to handle it. But yeah, I thought that was interesting too. How did you feel about the fight?
Man, the fight was it definitely gave us a perspective on how humanized this Captain America is. And yeah, like you said, he had to get intuitive, man, because if not, it would have been his grave. You know what I'm saying?
You've been real
So
nasty out there.
yeah, I mean, trying to create separation, like you said, flying away, even trying to get to the cherry blossoms, that was, he obviously knew that would trigger something in him or try to. So yeah, I mean, even like I'm glad it wasn't any unnecessary fan service for Sam in that fight, like him just eating a punch to the face or
Oh
maybe
my
throwing a
God.
punch that could have hurt Red Hulk. Like, come on, that wasn't happening.
Nah.
Everything that happened in the fight is pretty much how it should have played out. And, along with the collateral damage, like you mentioned, was crazy. Even when they got to the Blossoms, man, all them cars in the parking lot, man, I hope they paid their
Cook.
bill, bro, because
Cook.
hope they had insurance, dog, because if not, they gonna be shit out of luck.
They have to have an Avenger policy in this universe.
got to, dog. But man, nah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like you mentioned earlier, I think the whole scene of the dog fight was probably the best fight scene in this movie to me.
Oh, yeah.
But this one was very justifiable, and I enjoyed it. Like you said, Red Hulk definitely didn't lose.
Mhm.
So that's the part of it that was the most realistic of all was the fact that
Right.
Sam was about to eat shit. So yeah, I enjoyed it, bro, for sure.
U-GeekTV.